So today I'm going to be talking to you about authenticity and specifically how being your authentic self leads to liberation of self and thus liberation of community. So I kind of want to start with a story of a little girl who I actually saw today. I was at the hair salon today, getting prepared, and the hairdresser was doing her hair, and the little girl was clearly crying and clearly suffering. She was having her hair straightened. She kept saying, "Ouch, ouch, it hurts, stop, stop." And none of the other women, mostly Black women, really paid attention to the little girl because it was sort of like, that's just how it is when you get your hair done. But the hairdresser was just like, that's what happens when you have bad hair. It has to hurt. It's just a natural way of things. And the little girl just kept screaming and crying. And it just really struck me. And I just hoped in my heart that that girl had people in her life who could mirror to her how beautiful her authentic, natural self is. So not to say that you can't beautify yourself or you shouldn't do this, you could do whatever you want. But I hope that there are people in her life who could show her that how she is perfectly fine. I've been reading the work of Brene Brown. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she has a really popular book called Daring Greatly. And it's all about how showing up is the first and most important step. And that's really special for me, even being here today. Because when you first asked me for the interview, I was just like, what am I going to say? Like, what can I possibly talk about? And specifically in regards to authenticity, I feel like it's a long journey. And it's all about the journey, not the destination. I'm not sure that you ever get to a place where you're 100% comfortable in exactly who you are, but I think it's an ongoing process, and it's a process that I'm definitely in myself. And yeah, I think just showing up and being who you are naturally is the key to everything. I've also been thinking about the phrase liberté ou la mort, liberty or death. And I often think about how the personal is political and how the political is personal. And so even though that phrase is in regards to a historical event and a political situation, I think that it applies to our daily lives too. Be who you are, be free or not. The consequences of that, they won't be a literal death, but it might feel like an emotional death, just living life like not who you really are. And I've been thinking also about vulnerability and how authenticity is vulnerability. The courage to be seen, sit with someone face to face, and engage in a way that's heart to heart. And hopefully you could see me, and hopefully I could see you heart-wise. And back to the little girl, she kind of reminded me of myself. And I know that I didn't always have people reflecting the best in me or people who were rooting for me. And so that's kind of how I found my way to this journey of, self-love and authenticity. Perhaps you saw it on my Instagram timeline, but I used to write a lot of affirmations for myself, and I still do them for myself, but there was a time where I was publishing them online. And that kind of marked the journey for me because I didn't necessarily have people around me who promoted that self-love and who mirrored it for me. I just thought, you know what? I'm going to do it myself. I'm just going to start writing these love-filled, positive affirmations. And then I got to a place where I thought I'll just share it with the world. And so people would always ask me, Naika, why do you write about this stuff? I am content. I honor the light in me. All of these things that sound sort of cheesy to people. But I responded to the person that I'm trying to brainwash myself in the most positive and loving way, because I think that the messages we get from people, it could be family, it could be the media, it could be your hairdresser. They could often be super negative and low vibrations, low frequency, and that's not something that I want for myself. And so I've been thinking about the Buddhist Dharma as well, like how when you liberate yourself, you liberate everyone around you. And I started observing people a lot more. Like you could tell when somebody is like full of themselves in a good way, not in the negative ways we think about, like the ego. But when someone is so deeply content with who they are, they just have this fullness and they radiate this light. And hopefully if you're someone who, you know, has done your shadow work, as Freud says, you could sit with that person in their fullness, and hopefully that inspires you to be full too. I was watching this interview the other day, and this girl was talking about her neighborhood cleaning initiative and how she thinks that that's going to change the world. And the interviewer was just like, how can, you know, you in your little town spark change in the world? And I loved what she said. She said, if I'm conscious of what I do and how I engage with my environment, and I talk to a friend, and then my friend starts doing the same thing, and then that friend talks to that friend, and that friend, that friend. Soon you have a neighborhood, you have a whole community that's committed to making the world a better place, and it just started with one person. So I think the same goes for authenticity and vulnerability and intimacy. And in regards to my culture, so I'm half Haitian, half Ghanaian, and I was raised to be super, super proud of being Haitian specifically, like super, super proud. And I thought based off of that, like that Haiti was, and I still feel this way, is a super rich place. I grew up just feeling like I come from the best culture in the entire world. And it wasn't until I got to college, I'll never forget, I majored in anthropology, so the study of culture and people. My first year teacher had a slide up. It was just like, poorest countries in the world. And Haiti was on there. And I had never even thought of Haiti as poor because of the way I was brought up, and I don't know, maybe my imagination, I just thought it was the richest place. And I had a breakdown after that happened. And I remember I called him up, I made a meeting with him, and just expressed myself to him, like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I disagree with you, you know. And even though Haiti may be poor in terms of resources, which I don't necessarily believe in, it's rich in absolutely everything else. I came across this quote the other day, and it was sort of like a biblical reference or idea, but basically this person died, and he was, I don't know, he arrived to heaven, I guess, and then whoever was there asked him one simple question. Actually, I'll make it a she, I'll make it me, Naika. And the person looked at her, at me, and said, during the course of your life, why weren't you more like you? And then I just thought that was like a wake-up call, like that we should all be more like ourselves. And that's kind of the whole purpose of this life. And I also thought about another, I guess, biblical reference that came into my sphere the other day. And basically the question was, who taught you that you were naked? And that got me thinking, like, the same thing with poverty. Like, who taught you that you were poor? Who taught you that you were ugly? Who taught you that your hair is a mess? You know what I mean? Like, all of these things are taught, and they're brainwashing us to not love ourselves. And so think about the world if we were to all operate from that place of authenticity and self-love. I mean, it would change the entire planet. We would be full of ourselves, full of love for ourselves and our community and the environment. So yeah, that's been a big part of my life. It's a big part of how I show up also with patients. I really yearn to see people for who they are, and I hope that my space is one that feels safe and authentic and open, and people could really feel seen for who they are. And I think that that's healing, like I said before, like being able to sit across people face to face and feel loved.